Play to win your share of $1 million every week this football season at DraftKings.com. With 1 Week Fantasy at DraftKings, you can play when you want with a team you want. Just pick your contest, pick your team, and pick up your winnings. Hurry to DraftKings.com now. Use code FINE and play for free with your first deposit in Sunday's $1 million fantasy contest. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Enter FINE for free entry now only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
The Pirates and Cardinals have the best 2 records in baseball, and they go head-to-head one final time this regular season. Could this be a preview of next week's division series? Coverage begins Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Passion, opinion, must-hear radio. This is the Paul Finebaum Show. And now, Paul Finebaum.
And very pleasant good afternoon on a Tuesday. Glad you're on board on this program and looking forward to 4 hours of entertainment. And we begin with one of our favorite people on the show. You get to meet a lot of people as you navigate around the Southeastern Conference. But one of the most special players in this league or in the entire world of college football is Dak Prescott, and we welcome him to our program from Starkville. Dak, hope the day is going well. Congratulations on the start, and I sense you're feeling pretty good right now.
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me on.
Well, let's go back. I know coaches always like to move forward, and I understand that. And with A&M Saturday night, I know that's where your focus is. But how sweet was it to get that win at Jordan-Hare Stadium Saturday night?
It felt good. It was good for the whole team. It was a great team win. Defense stepped up when they need to. Offense made plays to score enough points to get that win. But anytime you can go on the road in a hostile environment like Auburn and get a win, it's big, and it was huge for this team.
A field goal away from being 4-0. Certainly last year at this time, A&M was slowly emerging as one of those teams in the country that everyone was talking about, ultimately becoming the #1 team in the country. How does this feel, or does it feel any different than a year ago when you were a Heisman favorite, maybe still to be down the road, and Mississippi State was #1 in the country?
Yeah, I really don't think it's much different. 2 teams that things are going their way so far this season. We dropped the 1 loss to LSU, but this is a very important game for us. Another road SEC game, and we want to get going in the SEC and pick that ranking up and that get going 2-1 in the conference. So this will be a big win if we can get it going down to A&M.
I know you dealt with all the Heisman hype last year. Your compatriot at LSU, Leonard Fournette, is getting it all this year. Certainly you saw Leonard in LSU a couple of weeks ago. Do you pay much attention to all that stuff, or do you have too much to do to get ready for the next game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't pay too much of the Heisman hype, but of course I turn on ESPN. I'm seeing the stats and seeing what players are doing. So advice to Leonard, keep it up, and that trophy might be yours.
I mean, I know you know all these guys, but maybe it's not fair to ask one player about another, but you all get compared from time to time. But his numbers are mind-boggling, and the comparisons with some of the great players in college football history are being made. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a great job. I mean, over 200 yards these last 2 games. So, I mean, that's phenomenal. And not too many people can compete with that. So, like I said, all credit to him.
Let's talk about the opponent Saturday night, Kyle Field. I'm sure you know they've added a few seats. They spruced the place up. It's one of the great facilities in the country. Not that Mississippi State doesn't have one as well, but your thoughts on heading to Texas for a primetime encounter?
It's going to be a hostile environment. We know they call it the 12th man. The 12th man, I know all their fans are going to be into it. They're going to try to make it as loud as they can and hostile for us, especially on third down and big plays. So we just got to go in, make sure we communicate well, and just be the team we are. We've all played in big-time road games. Last week was preparing us for this one, so just keep moving forward and communicating. We'll be fine on offense.
Dak, it's interesting. You've seen it all, and you've done it all in your incredible career. And I realize you're still young, and it's not a time perhaps to get nostalgic. But have you given any thought to? I mean, this is it for you now. You came back for the final year. You're every week. It's the final time here at Kyle Field or somewhere else, or am I just imagining things because I'm significantly older than you?
Well, I mean, I just think of it as my last trip. Like you said, the last time I'll play in some of these SEC stadiums and play these SEC teams. So just to make the most of every opportunity, every play I'm given, and be ready for every situation and make sure I give my team the best opportunity to win the game and put ourselves in the right position. So, yeah, I mean, I realize it's my last chance, my last go-around, and that's the reason I came back.
You have so many school records, I believe 21 in all, and you're being described, I think, Saturday night on the broadcast as the greatest player in Mississippi State history. I know you seem like a humble guy. You seem grounded, but that's a mouthful when you start to hear people talk about you in that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's humbling, though. It's everything I wanted when I came to school at Mississippi State and signed up to be the quarterback under Coach Mullen. And all the stats and records, that's something I'll look back to later in life and be proud of. But right now, I'm just living for the day. I'm living for the moment. I'm ready to go out today and get better at practice. And like I said, just give my team the best opportunity to win and be the best leader I can today.
When you think about what Mississippi State is doing this year versus the past, how would you? I know I asked you this in terms of the overall status, but how would you compare the offense this year versus last year? Certainly, a couple of components are gone, but you seem to be making up for that pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got playmakers, and what we're going to do, whatever we can to get in their hands. We've got some older receivers now, and I think that's the core position of this team right now. So we're going to get them the ball as much as we can, no matter how it is. And I think our running backs will come along. The run game has been a little shy for us early in the season, but we've got to get it going. We want to be a balanced offense, and everything will work out. As long as we're scoring more points than the other team, we're fine. So as long as we can keep going.
Dak, it was a year ago this weekend that the state of Mississippi was the epicenter of college football. The Bulldogs beat Texas A&M, in case you have forgotten, and meanwhile up in Oxford, Ole Miss was beating Alabama. Ole Miss has already taken care of Alabama. This week, the Rebels go to Florida. I mean, do you keep up with those guys? Those guys playing for the school up the road in the northern part of the state, or do you leave that to others?
I'll leave that to others. I mean, obviously, we're gonna hear they're undefeated. We're gonna hear how well they're doing, but I don't really pay much attention to them until the last week of the season and our time to play them.
Let me make you into a football analyst, which I'm sure you'll be one day. You're having a really big year. We all said you were the best quarterback in the SEC coming back, but what are your thoughts on the duo at Texas A&M? Certainly, Kyle Allen, the starter, and Kyler Murray. I mean, these are two fine quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a great job, and I think more importantly than anything, in a situation like that, as I was in early in my career, they're feeding off of each other. I mean, of course they're competing, both of them want to play, but it seems like they're feeding off each other, and when one does good, the other one comes in and wants to do good as well. So, I mean, that's a great duo right now, and our defense is going to have their hands full, but I think they're going to be ready for it.
I wanted to ask you, because we spend so much time on this program talking about quarterbacks, and I won't get too deep into the weeds here, but you were at Auburn last weekend. You had Jeremy Johnson coming in. Everyone talked about him. For whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. Not to get overly specific, because I know you're concentrating on your own team, but when quarterbacks aren't able to perform, they don't live up to expectations. What do you think it is, as someone who has not only played that position for a long time but excelled at that position?
Confidence more than anything. Jeremy Johnson, I mean, he didn't have a great start to his season, but he's a great player. I mean, you can tell he's athletic. He does things right, but I think it's more so confidence than anything of just going back to the things that got you to Auburn, that got you in the position that you were in before things started going bad, and just try to be true to yourself and get that confidence back up and make sure your teammates are rallying around you and show your teammates you have their back.
Jack, we had you on the set at SEC Media Days with Josh Dobbs, and certainly his team has struggled a little bit. Do you stay in touch with players, friends that you meet along the way at quarterback camps or at other events during the season? Do you guys text or talk?
A little bit every now and then. We'll text each other good luck or who y'all got this week, or see somebody have a great performance, just text them congratulations, things like that.
As I mentioned a moment ago, the Rebels from up north, I know you can't think about the Egg Bowl at the end of the season unless you want to think about what happened last year, but I would imagine that was just one of those motivating events that you'll file away for late November. Would that be a fair statement?
It's as fair as it gets. That was one of the main reasons coming back. Didn't want to leave that egg up there, so I definitely want to get that Egg Bowl back here where it belongs in Mississippi State, and I'll be ready for that last game of the season.
Dak, I know you're a busy guy. You have your master's degree. You're getting ready for Kyle Field. You don't pay attention to, or I hope you don't pay attention to programs like this, but we have a guy that is a big Mississippi State fan, a guy named Stingray, and any chance you've ever heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard of Stingray. I've seen one of his videos before.
He's a big Rebel fan. He's a big fan of the Bulldogs, and,
exactly.
and I'm still hearing the cowbells in my ear from his last rant. But unlike you, I have not gotten used to that sound.
Yeah, I mean, he's a passionate fan, and I love the sound of cowbells, and hopefully he's getting the rest of the country, or whoever's listening to the rant, used to those cowbells.
Dad, good luck this weekend at Kyle Field, and always appreciate your time. Best wishes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got Dak Prescott, an amazing player, and always so cool to catch up with. Well, the numbers are just unbelievable for Dak Prescott from a passing yard standpoint. 88% of the team, rush yards 21%, 53%. I mean, he is just unbelievable. One of 3 SEC QBs to start every game with no interceptions. Always great to catch up with Dak Prescott. What a way to start our program with one of the great young men in the world of college football. We'll keep going from here and take your phone calls at 855-242-7285. We're coming right back.
The Paul Finebaum Show is brought to you by Regions Bank, proud to be the official bank of the SEC.
Individuals and easy down the road I go, hanging memories on the Highline poles. Free and easy down the road I go.
Welcome you back to the program. We've been talking a lot about A&M hosting the Bulldogs. We heard from Dak Prescott. Now let's listen to Kevin Someone.
You know, this team we're playing, Mississippi State's a really good team. I'm amazed. You know, he spent 5 or 6 weeks at number 1 last year. You returned the most experienced and best quarterback in the league, and they're picked last in our division, and I don't see that. You know, they've lost a game, they missed the field goal, and kept Auburn didn't get a touchdown in 4 trips in the red zone last week. So this team's got an experienced quarterback who knows how to win, will not be intimidated, been in big environments and won big football games. They got their top tacklers back on defense. Like I said, I think basically, you know, as a team that's not getting the type of respect that they should be getting. And they're coming in here to prove something. And you got 2 very, very similar teams playing Saturday night, so it's going to be a heck of a game. Going to be a great atmosphere. I've talked to a couple of different people. I don't know that there's a couple tickets left, maybe, but 6:30 game, 2 top 25 teams. You know, will be. It's right in the wheelhouse for the 12th man. This will be a great atmosphere Saturday night.
Saturday night, of course, on the SEC Network, Bulldogs and the Aggies. Let's get some phone calls going here, 855-242-7285. Love to hear from you. We start with Tyler in Marietta, Georgia. Good afternoon, Tyler.
Hey, Paul. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
I had a talking point about the Georgia-Alabama game this weekend. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm a huge Bulldogs fan. My point is I think it's kind of a lose-lose for Georgia. And the reason I say that is if Georgia somehow wins, then it kind of contributes to the narrative that the dynasty is over and that Alabama wasn't as good as we thought they were. And if Georgia loses, then it's back to the same old Mark Richt, can't win the big game.
Let me address the first part of it. And you are correct. Regardless of the score, the story Sunday is the end of the Saban dynasty. Monday, it's writing Nick Saban off. But that is not a big deal if you're Georgia, though, because you have that win and then you turn around and go to Tennessee. And if you get that win, who knows where Florida is at this point, you are well on your way to Atlanta to play for the SEC championship. So I don't think, no, you're right. I mean, if Alabama had come into this game undefeated, it might give it a little more amp juice, but frankly, it's still, in my mind, the biggest game in the country. You can argue Notre Dame, Clemson, but I think they're pretty much on the same plane. And Georgia does have more downside, though. You're right, because the upside is you turn around and go to Knoxville.
Yes, sir.
Undefeated.
And you're right. You know, if Georgia just takes care of their business, it's going to end up all right. It's kind of like Marcus said yesterday. How dare Ole Miss beat Alabama? So it's not two undefeated teams, but should be a great game.
But I will tell you this, though, Tyler. If Alabama loses this game, then the next time Alabama loses, the aftermath won't be nearly as big. Alabama, it's a weird game. I've talked to a lot of people about it because there's pressure on both teams. And I was explaining this to one of our producers early this morning that I thought that certainly the pressure is on Alabama because if Alabama loses, to me, they will be writing off and should be. But there's also enormous pressure on Georgia because the game is so personal to so many Georgia fans. Let's move along and grab some more calls, and Michael is up next. Michael, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, Paul. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
Yeah, great. I'm on a cell phone driving home to Picayune, Mississippi. I'm a class of 85 Texas Aggie graduate, and I hate to use this term, but I'm in hog heaven down here in South Mississippi that the Aggies have joined the SEC. My question for you today is I was watching the game between A&M and the Hogs on Saturday, and they kept using the term smash mouth football for Brett Bielema and his team and his style of offense. And you look at Texas A&M's style of offense, and not sure what the term you would use. I would use kind of a fast-paced offense and a good mix of throw, passing, and running and everything. And I look back to the old days of the Southeast Conference, Southwest Conference. There's a lot more of that smash-up back then. And I'm wondering, can you truly be successful today in the SEC if you try to run an offense like Brett had, or what do you think about Kevin Sumlin's offense as far as being successful against teams like Alabama and LSU?
Well, I mean, here's where it gets interesting about let's just talk about Kevin Sumlin in Alabama for a moment. In 2012, with Johnny Manziel, A&M won in Tuscaloosa. The next year, Alabama won in a game they were up three touchdowns and had to hold on against Johnny. So it's a pretty even battle. You could say that maybe someone has slightly trumped Alabama. And then last year, explain this one to me, 59-0.
Yeah.
There's no explanation. I mean, you can obsess about one versus the other, but you cannot argue with Saban's success. Now, in terms of Brett Bielema, he struggled last year, went to overtime against A&M, nearly beat Alabama, lost by 1 point, and then just started beating people down, at least for a couple of weeks. So, I mean, I think all of us who jump to conclusions end up being wrong more times than not. Thank you for the call. Ryan in Florida is up next. Hey, Ryan, good afternoon.
Paul, good afternoon. Looking good today with your Burberry tie on. Listen, Paul, I must have missed a tweet or something. While you were in Gainesville, did they give you a chance to take a picture with the Birmingham Bowl trophy? Is that not a great moment in your life at this point? What a joke program that is. Paul, my point in making the call to you is I know you anytime I call you tell me how irrelevant Florida State is, and I keep calling. Paul, now we've been put down again when we either A, haven't lost, or B, haven't played. I guess we look terrible in practice this week because they dropped us again. Paul, going back to 2014, that's happened 14 times when we've been idle or we haven't lost. Florida State gets nothing handed to them anymore. We get nothing handed to us. We're only 2 points ahead of a one-loss SEC team. And after this weekend, I think we're going to be behind a one-loss team. If you look at 4 through 10, I'm going to throw out Georgia and LSU because they're good teams. But TCU, Baylor, Notre Dame, UCLA, and Utah, Paul, we wouldn't have recruited one player on any of those teams. Our scout team at Florida State could beat any of those teams. And the fact that we're sitting there at 11 is an absolute joke. If I had given up 52 points to Texas Tech, I'd be calling for the program to be disbanded. They gave up 52 points to Texas Tech, and that's the fourth best team in this country? What an absolute joke.
Well, let me say one thing, Ryan. And I'm not one of the flag wavers for the Seminoles, but I just did College Football Live on ESPN, and we were talking about Clemson, Notre Dame, and I interjected. I said, "Hey, have we forgotten FSU still plays football, even if they are using a Notre Dame rejected quarterback?"
Well, here's the thing, Paul, and by the way, Alabama wanted him too, but he wouldn't go there. But Paul, Florida State is the ACC. The ACC wouldn't be a Power 5 conference without Florida State. We know that. Clemson knows it. Georgia Tech knows it. They all know it, Paul. That's the only reason all those teams even can get into bowl games is because of Florida State. Florida State
Well, Ryan, hold on one second. And I think you mentioned the ACC, and I realize you're talking about football, but clearly the ACC was around before Florida State showed up.
Sure, they were a basketball conference.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was my point.
Yeah, but I don't pay attention to those sports where you can't have physical contact. That's for somebody else. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate the time.
Always good to talk. And next time I'm in Gainesville, I'll go visit the Birmingham Bowl Trophy. Quick break. 855-242-7285. I just spent about 30 minutes on ESPN with Trevor Matich. He was gassed up and ready to go. He'll join us next as we continue on a Tuesday afternoon.
Schneider is...
And we welcome you back to the program. So happy to be joined by Trevor Matich up at ESPN. Trevor, thanks for the time. As always, we look back for just one moment before we look ahead to this weekend and the devastating loss by Tennessee. You've had some very interesting takes on that, which are contrary to many of our callers here on the show. What are your thoughts on what happened at the end of that game?
Well, Paul, I see it differently than what a lot of people are saying nationally, especially about the two-point conversion. The coaching staff, especially Butch Jones of Tennessee, has given all kinds of grief for going for one instead of two when they scored a touchdown with 10 minutes to go. And my thought there is that with 10 minutes to go, you don't know what's going to happen. And it could have easily worked out that had he gone for two and failed, then losing that one extra point could have cost him the game, and then we'd be saying that he should have just gone for one. There was a lot of time left. The way it worked out, it went against what his choice was. But in the future, it could go for that same choice. And so I am not one to say that the coach flat out blew it and cost his team the game. He made a decision. I thought it was a defensible decision, and the game turned out the other way.
Yeah, I don't think if he had lost a game 2 weeks earlier against Oklahoma in the end, many would be saying the same thing. And then there was a clock management issue on the final drive when they missed the field goal, and there was also the 4th and 14 play by Will Greer that helped to win the game for Florida. So none of that you put on the coach. All of it on the players?
No, the players need to execute. And the thing is, on a 4th and 14 play, whether the coach wants to sit back and cover, whether he wants to heat him up and blitz, whatever he wants to do, the players need to execute it. You see, I think right now Tennessee is a victim of the expectations that they have for this season. I always thought that coming into this year, they were 1 year away. Next year's the year to pile the expectations on them. This year, a lot of people have picked them to be the SEC East champion preseason. I didn't pick them. I picked Georgia. But that doesn't mean it was a bad pick to choose them for that, but it means that it's unfair to heap the expectations of others onto that team. They really aren't ready yet. Most of their best players are freshmen and sophomores.
Some could say the same thing about Auburn. A major disappointment so far with 2 big losses, a near miss against Jacksonville State. I know you weren't crazy about them in the preseason either. You felt they had some time, but others picked them not only to win the SEC, but to win the national championship.
Yeah, Paul, I see Auburn is a different situation, though, because offensively especially, I expected them to perform much, much better. They have a veteran offensive line, and offensive lines aren't susceptible to the ebbs and flows and the winds of expectation. They had a quarterback coming back who had meaningful minutes in Jeremy Johnson, who was able to do it as a backup, able to run that offense, able to read defenses, able to make the throws. And it was a surprise to me that the offensive line is not opening the holes I thought they would for those young backs, and that Jeremy Johnson melted down on the field the way that he did. Now, I still expected Auburn to struggle early because of the youth and inexperience on that team. I know Gus Malzahn expected them to be a different team later in the season than they would be at the beginning of the season. But the nature of the way the offensive line and the quarterback failed, in my opinion, to live up to expectations I thought that were reasonable expectations is what's the disappointing thing about the start of this season.
Trevor, Georgia is a slight favorite over Alabama. I realize we don't make the line. That's the betting public or those who choose to bet. But your thoughts on this game, and does it matter who's favored?
It doesn't matter who's favored, but I think Georgia should be favored in this game. Alabama, I think, has more talent top to bottom, but they've got to put it together. And it's the way they lost to Ole Miss, I think, that has me scratching my head and has Nick Saban, I'm sure very chapped. 5 turnovers, that's terrible. But beyond the 5 turnovers, the defense had 4 opportunities on 4 of those turnovers where Ole Miss got the ball deep in Alabama territory to hold them to a field goal. They did it on the first one on that opening kickoff. But the next 3 opportunities deep in Alabama territory, Ole Miss converted to touchdowns. That's 21 points plus the field goal. And this is a game that Alabama lost by just 6 points. So the fact that the defense failed to hold after the turnover, the fact that the sudden change was such a catastrophe for Alabama and not just a setback for Alabama is what disappoints me. And until they can put those things wired together again, don't turn it over and then have the defense stop after an offensive or special teams failure, Alabama should be the underdog in this game.
You mentioned Ole Miss. The Rebels head to the Swamp this weekend, where Florida's looking pretty good. There weren't many expectations. They've won 2 games that could have gone the other way. What do you think about Ole Miss at Florida?
This was an interesting game because Ole Miss did a really good job against the Alabama defense. That was a terrific defense. And Florida's another excellent defense. And I think Chad Kelly, the quarterback for Ole Miss, has been a bit of a revelation because of the way he's done all 3 of the things that a quarterback needs to do to succeed in this defense. One is to be able to make the right reads and to make them quickly. If you make the right read, but you're a little bit slow, then the defense will have a chance to converge on whatever it is that you're doing. Kelly's making those reads quickly. The second thing is get out of trouble with your legs and make plays with your legs. And he's done that as well, especially on a 3rd and 11 against Alabama, where he scrambled out of the pocket and zigged and zagged and slalomed, then he converted that 3rd down. And then make throws. And he doesn't just make throws as a college quarterback. Kelly has been dropping that ball into tight spaces like an NFL quarterback. And that's against Alabama. And people give Alabama's defense a lot of grief for giving up long passes. But if you're going to hit them for long passes, you have to have just about a perfect throw and just about a perfect catch because they will not give you an easy one. Teams have done that, but it's had to be excellent, and Kelly was excellent. So I think they've got what they need to move the ball and score on Florida. The question will be, can Florida move the ball and score on Ole Miss? And I don't think they can.
Trevor, another subject, Mississippi State, fresh off the win over Auburn, heads to College Station. Texas A&M, a team that looks really good so far, but we don't know what to make out of that, what we thought was a great win over Arizona State. So what are your thoughts on College Station Saturday night?
Well, I think that Texas A&M has the edge in this game because I think they're just more explosive on offense. I like them on the perimeter better. I like their skill people. I like their receivers a lot better. And the fact that Mississippi State has struggled to run the ball the way that they have is a bit concerning to me. I don't think they're a team that will grind it out like the old-style LSU, Alabama, Arkansas, and keep the A&M offense on the sideline. I think it'll be basically a quarterback duel. And in a quarterback duel between Kyle Allen and Dak Prescott, given the offensive lines and the receivers that they both have to work with, I think the edge goes to A&M. And if they win this game, they're off to the races. I mean, they were a dark horse pick to win the division, and right now they're looking like that team.
Texas is off to one of its worst starts in history under Charlie Strong. A lot of it is just bad luck, but this is not a great weekend to turn it around playing TCU. Can they break this losing streak?
It'll be hard. I mean, they scored a lot of points against Cal, but I think TCU's defense, even with all the youth on it, will provide a stiffer test. But that is Texas's opportunity, because their defense is giving up points in buckets. I'm very surprised that with the talent that they have on defense that they've been gashed like they have the Longhorns now. But given that Texas Tech's put over 50 points on TCU, and given the fact that TCU has been without anywhere from 6 to 8, depending on the week, starters on that defense because of injury or suspension, it gives Texas a chance. And if Hurd at quarterback can do what he did against Cal and move that ball like he did, they'll have a puncher's chance. But there's too much of a difference in the guy throwing the punches at quarterback between Boykin at TCU and Hurd at Texas. I think this will be another miserable day for Longhorns fans.
Trevor, as we wind down, the Pac-12 has certainly been turned upside down with Oregon's bad loss and other things going on. Do you like the LA schools, or what about Utah?
I love Utah. Love Utah. I just wish they had a little bit more playmaking pizzazz on the perimeter. What they do well is an old school SEC team. Pound you, throw a play action pass. That's what they do. But at some point in that conference, you're going to have to light it up, because when you look at teams like USC, Arizona, Oregon, when they're relatively on, you've got to score points in order to beat them. Now, they scored 62 against Oregon. Whether or not that is because Utah's that good or Oregon just had that bad of a day, we'll find out. But with the Pac-12 schedule that they've got coming up, especially in the South, and those offenses that they'll face, they'll have to consistently have those kinds of offensive performances, and I'm not sure that they can do it.
Trevor, always a pleasure visiting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Trevor Matich, live from ESPN with us on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll take a short break. Back to some of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. We're off and running, and look forward to visiting with you very shortly. Bama-Georgia rivalry. A lot of headlines out there today, and let's get to them right away. Inside the night, Alabama football blacked out Georgia. Said, we are back. That was October 2008.
If you can't get jacked up for this one, you never will. Number 3 and number 8. Right up the middle, through the goal line, touchdown. This pass intended for Jones at the touchdown. It was 31-0 in the first half. Other never recovered. What a huge win for Alabama and Nick Saban.
I said October. It was actually September 27th. This year, it will be October. Mark Richt earlier today in Athens, looking ahead.
Yeah, Mark, there's been a lot of talk about, whether Alabama has slipped or whether their dynasty, so-called, is over. You've been in the league a long time. Just how hard is it to maintain what they've done for as long as they've done it? And also, do you think they've changed the nature of the league in the sense that, they sort of set the target that everyone had to shoot at for the last half decade?
Well, I think Alabama's a great football team, and they're as good or better than they've ever been, in my opinion. So I don't know what the talk might be out there, but they're as good or better than anybody in our league, and as good as or better than anybody in the country. So, you just got to play the games and see who wins. But I think they're still a great team. I do.
Mark, I read that this week that Alabama is the underdog for the first time in like 6 years, 70-something games. What is your reaction to being the team that put them in the underdog role?
I don't really have a reaction to that.
Wait me when that's over, okay? The first question was by Dan Wolken asking Mark Richt about the end of the Saban dynasty at Alabama. So he's asking a guy who's never won a national championship about another guy who's won 4 national championships. Makes a lot of sense to me. By the way, the game in 2008, everyone's obsessed over the last time Alabama was an underdog in 2009. But if you go back, the last time Alabama was an underdog in the regular season, I'm not talking about the SEC championship game, I'm talking about the regular season. The last time Bama was an underdog in the regular season was September 27th, 2008. It was Alabama and Georgia, and we know what happened there. So if you play the weirdness game, you have to like Alabama. If you look at the teams on the football field, you may have a different perspective. Let's continue. Bob is in Oklahoma City, and you are next up. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Paul, first-time caller.
Good deal.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about the Tennessee program, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Okay. Trevor just mentioned a while ago, and you probably had several calls, which I hadn't seen, about the 2-point, the conversion. The way I understood it, he said that wouldn't have made that much difference. And I think that if you think about that and you have a miss on that, you're going to lose by 2 points instead of 1 point. So I don't know that would have really made any difference. And I agree, probably in the first part of the game, if you're going for that, it might have made a difference. But just in the fourth quarter, I think it'd been smart to go for, the 2 points.
Yeah, listen, Trevor had a differing opinion than almost everyone we heard from yesterday. I don't buy what he said in terms of Tennessee coming back, Florida coming back with a touchdown and 2 field goals. To me, it was pretty obvious. We've beaten it to death. Butch Jones doesn't agree with the critics. He did say today in Knoxville that he welcomes the critics. That's what he signed up for. Well, good for him. He better, if he doesn't win Saturday, he'll get his wish. He'll get plenty of them right away. Let's go next to Griffin, Georgia. Ray Ellis is up next. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Paul. This is Ray Ellis Holiday calling you from beautiful but dangerous downtown Griffin, Georgia. I want to tell you, I don't have a crystal ball, Paul. I do have a frog in a matchbox, but I'll be gall darned if he can pick a winner either. As far as the Alabama game goes, I think I'm going to pick Georgia in the first half and Alabama in the second half. And that could be swapped around because I could be wrong.
Yeah, you could be. Let's go to Larry next in Kingsport, Tennessee. Larry, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Been listening to all the comments on the Tennessee football situation, and I've got a different take on that. I think that the quarterback situation is Tennessee's problem. I don't think Dobbs can be the quarterback and Tennessee win. I would rather have a quarterback that would pass for 200 yards than a quarterback that ran for 100 yards. So I'm playing. Don't know if Butch Jones can face up to the situation that he needs to go to his bench, get a freshman or a sophomore quarterback, put him in, let him lead the team, and use Dobbs as a wildcat quarterback. What do you think,
Larry? You're the very first one I've heard mention that. I don't think that you are going to see that unless something really spirals out of control. I think Josh Dobbs has handled the situation reasonably well. Maybe not great, but fairly well. Wayne is in New Orleans. Wayne, thank you, and good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Paul. First-time caller. How you doing, buddy?
I'm really well.
Good. I got a couple of questions about LSU football, mainly for Annette. First, a lot of people down here in Louisiana are forgetting that LSU still has Alabama at Alabama, A&M at home, Florida, a better Florida team at home. We got a few games ahead of us still that people are forgetting that, because of the hype around Annette with the Heisman thing. That's all we're hearing now, which I'm not buying into it just yet because we got to start winning more football games consistently down here, And, everybody wants to knock Gus Miles when he does something goofy, and when he wins, they don't say a word about it, but when he does something goofy. Okay, that being said, what do you do for a game this weekend, and, a lesser game with a Heisman candidate type guy? Do you still give him the ball 20-25 times and just let him get yardage and touchdowns, or do you, LSU's loaded with good backs, do you show?
Yeah, Wayne, to me, you don't need Leonard Fournette this weekend to do anything.
Not at all.
I'm not sure what the answer is. You don't necessarily want to sit him, but you give him a quarter or two and then get him out of there as fast as possible. There's just no upside. He doesn't. And by the way, he doesn't need the stats. He's already the prohibitive Heisman favorite.
Right. In past history, I mean, do you recall, you know this better than me, these guys that have won running backs, do they play them every game against the lesser guys and just let them get 300-400 yards, or what do they do usually?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes, I think at this point in the season you do play for a while until the game is out of reach, but you don't have to, is my point. And let me say that the Heisman, it's a cliche to say the Heisman is not won in September. It is won in November. Right now, Fournette is in one of the best positions I've seen anyone in. Dak Prescott was in a great spot last year, but if LSU drops some of these games, it's not going to make any difference because Fournette will not be. What he does against Alabama, what he does against Ole Miss on the road, what he does those other games, to me, decide and determine whether he wins or not. Not against Eastern Michigan. We'll take a break. We're up against the next 3 hours of the show. Stick around. We've only.
Hi, I'm Joan. Football's back, and it already feels like the playoffs thanks to 1 Week Fantasy at DraftKings.com. With millions of dollars in prizes being paid out each week, every play in every game could take you closer to a life-changing payday. Hurry to DraftKings.com now. Use promo code FINE and play for free with your first deposit in this Sunday's $1 million fantasy contest. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Enter FINE for free entry now only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The Golden State Warriors, NBA champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Last week, Julie Carroll posted a status that read, "Just had the most delicious banana ever." It got 2 likes and 4 comments. Well, Julie, Geico also wants to make a comment. What if we told you in as little as 15 minutes you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance by switching to Geico? With those hundreds of dollars, we bet you can find another banana equally, if not more delicious than the one you had last week. Hashtag go bananas. Hashtag savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The Pirates and Cardinals have the best 2 records in baseball, and they go head-to-head one final time this regular season. Could this be a preview of next week's division series? Coverage begins Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio.